Hey, good morning, everyone. I love this venue. For those of you that haven't had a chance to really appreciate the building and all that's around us, it's time to take an opportunity as you go through and check it out. It's almost 200 years old, and it was first actually constructed to build safety equipment for this newfangled thing called electricity. And it's a phenomenal example of how we've continued to build on legacies of great equipment, legacies of great technology innovation. This was actually one of the first manufacturing structures in what was the meat packing district. So I love the allegory to what we go through now as we talk about a fourth industrial revolution, where technology and change helps us do things differently than were done certainly 200 years ago, but even that were done 20 years ago. And the pace and the speed at which that happens is going to continue to increase. And one of the things Jeff alluded to, which I'm going to talk a little bit today, is this aspect of leveraging the clouds to help us take advantage of that technology better and faster. In a multi-cloud world where we're working on-premise, we're working with our mainframes, we're working in other places, where our data moves, how we manage that, how we manage our security, but more importantly, how we can make things move more quickly is critical. And I'm going to use mine. I'm not a pilot. I'm sure we have some pilots in the room. I actually work with pilots in a different way, going back to my early career, if you will, and see if I can advance. The most dangerous part of flying in a plane is actually landing it, so I prefer to jump out. Those round chutes are the first kind of chutes that I learned to parachute under. It's a round military chute. It wasn't black and white when I did it, but I think it helps get the picture. When you land in that parachute, it's called a parachute landing fall. Like all things in the military, we have a TLA, a three-letter acronym, a PLF, and that's the first thing you learn to do. Feet and knees together, you're going to hit your balls of your feet, your calves, your thighs, your buttocks, and your push-up muscle, and roll. I still remember it. New parachuting is very different. You don't parachute landing fall. You do what's called swooping. You're able to steer it and bring it in. Now, how is that like technology? It's exactly very similar. You can go faster, okay? But if you go faster, you have to be more skilled and understand what you're doing. You can be more agile, and you can certainly be more efficient. As a matter of fact, that parachute is 50% of the nylon, right, that's in those large parachutes, because it's designed better and it has technology. And guess what? Those same aspects apply to our market dynamics today. With technology, we're able to go faster, we're able to make changes in direction more quickly, and we're certainly able to be more efficient. And just a couple examples of maybe customers that we work with that I get a chance to visit. One of my favorites is BMW, not just because I like cars, but it's a great company to go visit. And I actually met with them right after being in a venue like this in Essen, Germany, where we did our last exchange in Europe, which was actually the largest coal mine in the world for almost 100 years. And now guess what? Is a venue much like this. And it's a place where they meet to talk about the fourth industrial revolution. And we had BMW speak there. And BMW, like most manufacturers, is used to doing things on a 7-year cycle. Most automobile manufacturers revamp their vehicle every 7 years. You might get an update at the 3-year mark, right? But you're used to seeing that. Well, we all know that's changing. Whether it's the technology inside the vehicle or the technology that builds the vehicle, those cycles are collapsing. And BMW is working with us to continue to drive changes. They're using technology to advance their cycle change in their products as well as to engage with their vendors. So it's a great example of how technology changes something that they've done for a very long time and compresses it and makes it work faster, just like their cars. But you also have the opportunity with technology to be more agile. Qantas, another great customer in Australia, their idea of becoming more agile was actually to create a completely separate airline. Jetstar is a Qantas-owned airline, but it's based entirely on technology. It's based on lower fares. It's based on higher service, but self-service. And their idea of being agile was not just to do what we do and make it go faster, but actually to change direction. And the things that they do with Jetstar, they can then incorporate back into Qantas and continue to drive that. They differentiate not just by lower fares, but by a higher level of service and reaching a different demographic, thinking about what their user experience is like, thinking about the personas that they're serving. And finally, when we do this right, we become more efficient. A neat example that's completely outside of that realm is Verb Surgical. Who's heard of Verb Surgical? Probably none of us, right? Unless you're a surgeon. Verb Surgical basically is applying robotics to surgery to make it more usable and more portable. It's a joint venture between Alphabet, the Google owners, and Johnson & Johnson. And guess what McKinsey discovered? This is much like, and sorry, I'm a Golden State Warriors fan, so I love the idea of what we've done in analyzing basketball. They analyze surgery, right? I had to just get that out there. Sorry, in a sports town. Hate me if you will. I promised myself I wasn't going to talk about the Warriors, and God, there I'm doing it. All right, let's go back. McKinsey did a study. 50% of the cost of surgical complications, 50% of the economic cost is due to complications in 3% of surgery challenges. So if you can actually have fewer surgical complications by having a better device that's more portable and robotic, you can actually also become more efficient. So this whole idea across all of our industries about how we can move faster, how we can change direction, and how we can become more efficient, more cost control, more cost aware is critical. And we're all here because guess what? Our bosses and our managers are thinking about this the same way. We work with Gartner and IDC, and Gartner did a recent survey around the technology transformation, what CEOs are seeing. 50% say, without a doubt, that their industry will be digitally transformed. That's not just affected. That's not just, right, yeah, we got to understand it. Transformed in the next 10 years. The good news is, 84% of them believe that that will help their margins increase, that they'll be able to provide better service, they'll be able to engage with their customers better. And how do they think they're going to do that? They think that 46% of the value they deliver, so this is all CEOs surveyed, will be digital. Will be in how you interact with the brand, will be in how you interact, how I move my supply chain faster, how I make sure that happens. And guess what? This final aspect of how we think about moving through the clouds, the analysis by the CEOs, or the report by CEOs, believe that 75% of their data will not be processed in a traditional data center by 2022. Right now, they estimate that about 10% of their overall data is processed outside. So we're in the midst of a phenomenal transformation where our technology does amazing things, but it also does it in very different ways. So if we're going to think about how we go faster, be more agile, and be more efficient, we've got to think about what we're doing today and what we're doing tomorrow. And of course, when you speak to the CIOs, this is a CIO survey, not a CEO, they're rooted much more in reality. This is the spectrum of who's not doing anything, right, to who is doing something and feel like they're reaping the benefits. What do you guess? The majority believe that they are in the middle of designing and delivering the transformational capabilities that will reap those 84% returns and increase margins the CEOs see. So what we are all in the midst of by being here is this concept of how do I run and reinvent my organization at the same time? How do I do our day job? How do I work together with my collaborators to design it and deliver it and make that happen? My great metaphor for running and reinventing, which isn't perfect, is a pit stop. We continue to try to make it go faster, to rotate out almost every part of the vehicle in a short amount of time and keep it running. Now, the perfect metaphor is we change those tires while it's rolling. And someday, I imagine we'll figure out how to do that. Or we really do work on the wings while flying. And then you would need a parachute. Right? But this aspect of running and reinventing is why we're here today. And we call it exchange because we want to exchange ideas with you and give an environment for you to exchange ideas with one another about what it takes to run and reinvent your company. Another great example from the automotive, since we're on that thread, is Ford. Ford understands that there is a new dynamic in how their vehicles will be consumed. Almost $100 billion of additional revenue can be collected from data connectivity services, including the apps, navigation, remote services. You've got to think about what that means to the car. The car is a transformation of that. V2V, and if anybody saw, Toyota was the first to announce vehicle-to-vehicle communications will be in all of their vehicles by 2025. Ford is closely behind. What does V2V mean? It's not just a self-driving car that can see and use radar and connect. It's a car that talks to another car. So with one Ford's coming to the intersection, the other Ford's coming to the intersection. And it knows, and it helps avoid collisions by communicating and making that work. V to I is vehicle to infrastructure. You can communicate with the stoplights and drive a much more different experience. But the other side of what's happening in Ford as they run and reinvent is the ownership model. Today, most of us, you guys are in Chicago, so you're way more advanced than many of the rest of the country. But most of us at least have one car per person, or one car per household. Nearly 30% of cars in 10 years from now will be shared vehicles that nobody owns, or autonomous vehicles that move on their own. So how this changes how they interact with their technology is completely changing what a manufacturing company does and how they think about what they do. Now, I'll go back to my old, for lack of a better term, hobby. One of the things I used to do is walk a lot as an infantry officer. And we carried backpacks, and we reported up what we were seeing. And someone at headquarters collated that data. And then somebody figured out what was going on, and they called back down and they told us. JEDI, the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure Initiative, is an initiative all around using the cloud to provide all of that information directly to the backpack of every soldier. Essentially, right, it's a petaflop processing ability right there on the ground where a person needs it. And the question is, how do we do exactly what they're doing with the Joint Enterprise Defense Initiative, the JEDI, in our own organizations? What do we do to unlock the power of the force every day for us? So those are examples from auto manufacturers all the way down to line infantry men and women who have unlocked the power of compute and run and reinvent what they do. Because they're still having to walk. That's not changing. But how do they do that and be more efficient and gather? So when we think about that in terms of what we're going to talk about today, I like to think of it in terms of kind of 4 key themes when I'm running and reinventing. The first is I have to have an innovation mindset. And we talked about Ford, and they're having fully autonomous vehicles and what they need to do that. They're driving innovation all the way down to the user. But we also have to think about how we master modern IT to make the job better too. Navistar, another transportation commercial provider, is a good example of that. Navistar, for those of you that haven't been familiar with them, they're the leading provider of buses, trucks, that actually make defense vehicles and engines. They're using big data to generate new value-added services that deliver straight to a driver, whether it's predictive break fix, predictive supply, route management. Their on-command remote diagnostics will actually process 20 million records daily from nearly 12 different telematics systems on each vehicle. Think about how that changes the role of a truck driver, right? It's a completely different environment. They're using Control-M to do things that their data engineers used to have to do daily to transform, change that information, move it from place to place. They use it with Hadoop, and they've saved nearly 20% of their engineering effort on day-to-day routine efforts to be applied to investing in the future. Now, what they've also had to do, and what we need to be thinking about doing, is how do I unify what I have with the current? How do I make sure, with the future? How do I make sure that my current infrastructure is future ready and moving forward? And we're going to have Trish up from eBay, which will talk exceptionally about all the things that eBay's doing with their great infrastructure in place to be thinking about the future. Because the future for eBay, if you think about it, is how do I use all of the data that I'm collecting day in, day out in the appropriate ways, use artificial intelligence to change and personalize the shopping experience, right, and change and personalize my interaction. I don't want to take too much of Trish's thunder because she's going to talk about that, but it's a great example of thinking about what I have now, unifying that, and being ready for the future. But like we're all also in here because if it's not running, we're in trouble. That's when our phone rings. So we also have to be thinking about how we stabilize and optimize, how we keep it secure. The North American Energy Reliability Corporation, which provides the standards for energy reliability and consistency, and we've got some utilities in the room working with them, was working with us, and those utilities use BMC Discovery to understand all of their assets, to ensure that they know the footprint and the dependencies, that they can be aware and capable and ready to protect against cyber attacks, and that their servers can be patched and be ready. All of these aspects, whether it's Ford, to Navistar, to eBay, to NERC and its utility members, are all areas where we're taking traditional industries, what people think of as jobs that used to happen in this building, and transforming them through technology. One of the great examples of a company that transformed itself through technology and delivered great results is probably on this next slide, and it's maybe better if I show it in terms of a graph. So if I took $1,000 and I put it into a company roughly 8 years ago, which one do you think would give me the most returns of all the technology companies you know and you've worked with? Probably top of list, Apple, right? Maybe Google, maybe Amazon. Would someone think those might be at the top end? Those would be actually the first 3 on the list. Now, you'd have made good coin, right? Good investment, right? But those technology companies, that's what $1,000 would have returned. Now let's think about companies that are transforming through technology. I love, automotive, so we probably all have one popping to mind that sticks out. I love, right, entertainment, streaming video. You might think of 2 more. Tesla, Netflix, right? One used to mail CDs, right? One just makes cars, and yet they've leveraged technology to change their business. Which company do you think leveraged technology to drive the biggest change in their outcome in the last 8 years? We're in the home of this specific thing here in Chicago, although this is a neighbor of yours. It's not Chicago-based. Anybody got it? No? Domino's Pizza. Domino's Pizza is the leading user of technology of all of these to drive shareholder value. As a matter of fact, if you invested in Domino's Pizza, I think if you put $3 into Domino's Pizza, it's worth, I think yesterday, I think I got on my next slide, $273. Okay? Now think about what they did. They reinvented themselves. Their CEO, right, went on national TV and said, "Our cardboard tastes like crust." Said that. I mean, that's pretty awesome, right? To own that, to do that, and then they went about dismantling their business and putting that together piece by piece by piece. They went through an unbelievable transformation. They got the fundamentals right. Their cardboard doesn't taste like crusted. Their cardboard even tastes better. No, their crust doesn't taste like cardboard anymore. But more importantly, they've created a completely digital experience. When you order Domino's Pizza, you can watch it through the system. You can track its delivery. 100% of it is digital. Nearly 40% of their orders are now through mobile. All of the various Domino's franchises and deliveries are connected. And they do that clearly by leveraging systems they've got. What they had currently, they couldn't start from scratch. Domino's was a large existing business with lots of legacy investments in both technology and infrastructure. But they changed it and transformed it to deliver incredible value. So that's the idea of what you do when you connect all those dots and you're able to pull that together. You can make a difference and you can manage these clouds flying in formation. I mentioned I like to parachute. That is one of the most dangerous skills, which is parachute formation flying under canopy. It's called relative canopy work, RCW. You've got to have an acronym, right? To do this, you have to have everything working together, and you have to understand what each teammate's doing and what each piece of that puzzle is applying. And for us, our version of relative canopy work is thinking about what we have to do to manage multiple cloud environments, to manage environments that are on-premise, on mobile, in the cloud. And we think of it in terms of 3 key things. The first thing you have to be able to do is to operate it. You've got to make sure that your performance and your compliance are meeting all the standards you've got to. You have to think about stabilizing and optimizing. If I work clockwise, once I do that, then I can automate. I can run it anywhere. I have insights into my data. I can modernize my applications. I can drive the change I need to drive with less engineering effort, just like Navistar is doing now using Control-M. And when I get all that right, then I can provide world-class digital service. I can discover where all my assets are, and I can understand how my stakeholders interact with them, whether I'm an agency, whether I have customers, whether I have patients. I can have that service delivered anywhere. And I can make that service cognitive and thoughtful. I can use AI to change the experience. And I can make sure that experience is reachable to me wherever I am. All those aspects of a multi-channel experience all rely on all 3 aspects of this relative canopy work for us. These are the required capabilities. And so for us, we then take that and we think of, what does that mean to me? What guidelines, as I'm doing this, do I want to make sure I'm looking out for? So we think in terms of enablers. First, any automation I do, I want to put it in my business context. I want to take the time to understand that. understand what my mission critical services are, and put it in that context. The second step, once I know that, is who are the personas I serve? Who are my partners? Who are my employees? Who are my other stakeholders? Who are my customers? And making sure I'm thinking in terms of those personas and creating a user experience, a digital workplace that enables them to automate in that context. Once I have those two building blocks right, then I can think about how I then layer in thoughtful cognitive AI, ML, and NLP into what they're doing. How do I then drive those capabilities? And underlying all that for us are the next three things. First, I want to be integrated with the ecosystem in a thoughtful, economically efficient way. Second, I want to be platform agnostic. We're not asking you to deploy the BMC platform. We are telling you that we know BMC is part of what you do. We hope BMC is part of more of what you do. And we're driving the appropriate integrations, the appropriate ability to operate in the cloud, which Nayaki and Gore and David will share with you in order to make that work. And once you do that, then clearly we develop the most efficient, cost-effective platform, cost-effective technology environment for you. So those are the ways we think about servicing, automating, and operating with the idea of what are the baseline requirements I want to have as I undertake a technology initiative. Now, as you think about undertaking a technology initiative, which you're going to hear a lot more from Bill in a minute, the other thing I want to make sure I lay out there is working with BMC as a partner. We have spent a lot of time focusing on building out, just like our products, our customer success capabilities. And we believe that our world-class services, when joined up with our partners, will help you accelerate your multi-cloud strategy and your digital transformation. Whether it's thinking about how you bridge to multi-cloud and build an executable plan to take certain workloads and figure out which clouds they work on and deploy cloud cost control. We can do that in just 15 days. We can do that over a course of study, but it's an important service for you to consider as you work with BMC. We also help you, once you're there, understand and discover your cloud assets. Implementing optimized cloud discovery that helps you understand where they are, develop that roadmap, and put that in place so you have constant refresh of where your assets are. And this is a service we provide and work with you to deliver. Many of you will be working on how I move IT service management, my digital services to the cloud, to Remedy as a service, or Remedy and containers, as we'll talk about in a minute. We have an opportunity to work with you to move to a modern service desk, to work with your on-premise environment as well as your cloud environment. And finally, for some of you, consuming BMC as a service will be important. We can deliver managed BMC SaaS solutions and deliver that either with our partners or delivered from BMC. So as you think about the product innovations today and think about what you're trying to do to make sure you're matching your initiative to our technology, also make sure you're thinking about how you work with us as a partner. And speaking of partners, the other aspect is it's important to us to make sure we are working with all of the cloud partners that are relevant to you. We have ongoing and developing partnerships with all the partners you see here to ability to support you wherever your workload's going to be. And we recognize still, just like the CEO survey said, the bulk of all of our workloads for many of us is still on-premise or is still in a data center or is still in some place we can touch and see it. But we know that more and more of our workloads are moving here, and our goal is to help you, right, fly through those clouds in formation in sync so it's not a challenge. We've worked with those partners. Many of them are here today. We're happy to have AWS on stage with us, which is great because having a partnership is important to us. And the final piece is having a partnership with you is important to us. We have spent a lot of time over the last several years. I think Jeff mentioned this is our 5th BMC Exchange in Chicago. Each of those 5 years, we have increased our investment in our R&D in order to deliver products that help support this multi-cloud journey. We feel like we, I guess a great hockey town, even though you're not necessarily Wayne Gretzky fans, skate to where the puck is. That's been our goal. We have skated to where the puck was going to be to help drive and support your readiness to move to multi-cloud, and we're here to support you. So as you think of us, think in terms of that trust, think in terms of that engagement, and most importantly, please think in terms of us as partners. Throughout the day, like Jeff said, if there's anything I can do, no ask is too big and no ask is too small. I look forward to meeting and talking with you. More importantly, I look forward to having and helping the exchanges we have with one another. Welcome. Thank you for your time. It's the most valuable thing you can invest as part of your day, and we hope to make it valuable. Thank you very much.
Work. It goes where it needs to go. It goes hybrid cloud, public cloud, business cloud, multi-cloud. and back to the data center. But the real work is in managing IT's work. To see the costs, to know it's secure, to improve automation while dialing up the speed, to turn complex into, that was simple. This is where work meets BMC multi-cloud management. This is where work works best. BMC, the multi-cloud management company.
Please welcome Bill Baruti, President of Enterprise Solutions.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here with us in this great venue, as Dan said. I'm always happy to be in Chicago. I grew up in the Midwest, actually Ohio and Michigan, but as a kid, my favorite memories of Chicago are making the trip to the big city, going to a Cubbies game, and getting the best pizza in the country. So I'm always happy to be here. You guys have a fantastic city. So I am excited to be here today to talk about the innovations that BMC is delivering to help you achieve your digital transformation goals. And we're going to spend the next 60 minutes with 6 co-speakers. I'm going to have 3 of our innovation leaders on stage with me, 2 customers and a partner, taking you through the things that we're doing to help you succeed with your digital transformation. And again, you're going to hear directly from customers in terms of the value they're achieving and how they overcame some of the same challenges that you face every day. Now, I also mentioned that we're investing a lot in R&D, and we're investing more in R&D than we have in the history of the company. And we're investing it focused on the challenges that you face. And Dan talked about these challenges, the need to move faster. Technology needs to get out of the way. You know, IT operations management and IT service management technology needs to be an enabler, not an inhibitor of how you move faster. And we'll talk about that. Mastering modern IT means a lot of things. We have new technologies, cloud technologies. We have new processes like DevOps. And again, we can't allow the technology of the past to get in the way of how we bring in new technology and modernize the way we operate IT. Our IT operations management and service management solutions have to be enablers to that. And Dan mentioned the fact that even though all of us are building new applications and taking on the public cloud as an enabler to innovation and digital transformation, we still have a lot of our applications, workloads, and data that live on-prem. And so we have to live in a world where we can bring those two together to deliver customer outcomes. And we'll talk about that as well. And then lastly, stabilize and optimize means a lot of things. As we go through this transformation to be more digital, to move faster, things still have to operate. We can't have a compliance or security breach. We can't have costs that are twice as much as we expected. In fact, we have to bring down costs in some areas of IT to fund innovation investments in other part of IT. And those are the areas where we're innovating to help you achieve the business outcomes that you're looking to achieve. But again, this is challenging because it's not easy to overcome this transition to move fast and be more digital. Many of our customers are enabling some of this through adoption of public cloud, and Dan talked about the massive explosion of that. How many of you in the room have public cloud usage somewhere in your company? Raise your hand. Okay, at least 80 or 90%. So matches the statistic. Now, that's exciting, but we've got to have technology that allows us to operate and achieve business outcomes while embracing the public cloud. And in fact, many of our customers find that when they moved to the public cloud, something didn't work exactly as they expected. It cost a lot more than they expected. They didn't get the cost and performance outcome combination that they expected. There was a security concern that they hadn't thought about, and they actually bring jobs back. And that's failure, right? We don't want that to happen. So we need technology that allows us to planfully make that step in the journey and succeed with it. Now, we also have a lot of new people involved in IT. Many of us deal with the trend where the business units have a lot of responsibility over applications. They're building new applications on their own, but IT has to be a part of that. And we also have a lot of new constituents that want to consume services. It's not just IT for IT, it's IT for every employee in the company. It's IT for our customers. In fact, our applications are the backbone of how we generate revenue. And so we have to adapt the way that we deliver services to make those additional constituents happy. And we'll talk about specific examples of that as well today. And then lastly, all this change has created risk. It's created an unstable environment for governance. You know, the old days of IT saying, well, in order to bring a new application to market or drive any level of change, we use ITIL, we have this 7-phase process, you have to go through these 20 reviews, and you know, we'll let you know when we think you're ready. That doesn't work anymore. Business won't accept that. That's why they end up with shadow IT organizations that deliver applications without us even knowing about it, which creates huge governance problems. And those examples exist, I would bet, in most of your companies. So we also need to deliver technology that seamlessly allows for governance, control, for compliance, for security, without getting in the way of the business, without getting in the way of the goal of moving fast. Again, all focus areas, and you'll hear from our different speakers today about them. Now, to put a finer point on it, we live in a world that's really complex. And you know, if in the old days, we had just a mainframe, and then we moved to, well, we've got a data center. Well, then we have a bunch of data centers, and then we have a private cloud environment, and then, oh, by the way, we have a public cloud environment, and oh, by the way, we don't just have one central organization that builds apps, we have lots of organizations that are building apps. That complexity is exciting, but it's also really scary, because we in IT live at a time where IT is more important to the business than ever, but the level of complexity is also greater than it's ever been. And in fact, this picture's more complicated, right? Because the reality is we have users inside and outside of the company. We have processes that span waterfall to DevOps and beyond. We have huge concerns around security and compliance that are only made more scary by the use of public cloud, by the DevOps process that's moving at lightning speed and putting more iterations of versions of new innovation into the market even faster. And so making sense of all of this is really, really challenging, and that's our job, to make this work at the right cost without a compliance or security concern, but while moving very, very fast. That's what we hear from all of you, and that's where our innovation is focused on. Now, to speak more specifically about those challenges, we can't just depend on new technology. We have a rich legacy. Most of us in the room work for companies that have been around more than a year or two. So we have a rich history of technology that has to work with the new innovation that we're building, that has to work with those public cloud applications that we're building. But they have to work together because they don't live in a vacuum. We don't just build one application that lives in AWS and delivers all of the value for our company. No, we live in a world where technology on-prem, technology in the cloud, technology from a third-party provider has to work together to deliver the business outcome that we're looking for. Secondly, the cloud is great, but the cloud is immature, and the governance of the cloud is immature. And there's a lot of examples. I'll talk about one for a second here. Tesla. You know, Dan mentioned Tesla. A few weeks back, Tesla announced that they had a breach in their AWS environment. And we have AWS here today. By the way, it's not AWS's fault. They had a breach in AWS. Why? They had a Kubernetes setting that was weak for compliance controls. A hacker was able to get in through Kubernetes and shut down the R&D test environment for all of Tesla for 3 days. That's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And by the way, it was a simple setting problem that could have been detected, but there was no operational governance for their R&D test environment in AWS. Well, we'll talk today about things that we're doing to help customers to make sure that those public cloud environments are just as secure and safe as the private cloud environments, but without putting so many operational barriers in the way that it slows down the development teams. Next, speed and complexity are beyond human scale. How many of you in the room think you'll have twice as many applications or digital services 5 years from now as you do today? Most of you. I would bet you that it's more than you think, though. Because inside of your companies, if you're digitally transforming, our customers are telling us in surveys that in 3 to 5 years, they will have more than double the number of applications and digital services supporting their business. Now, do you think that we can hire enough humans to keep up with that? Will we put twice as many people on the service desk? Will we put 10 times as many people in roles to do automation? No, we won't. We cannot throw enough people at this. Our budgets won't grow fast enough, and by the way, humans will not be able to keep up with the scale. So we have to use automation and analytics to be able to overcome those challenges. And we'll show you some specific examples of that today, and in fact, you'll hear from customers as well. Lastly, DevOps is fantastic, and I've talked about it a few times already, and we'll talk more about it during the day. but DevOps has also disrupted the traditional process of how we do IT operations and service management. Developers want to move quick. Developers don't want to check in through UIs 5 different ways to certify performance, compliance, change management. They have no interest in that. They want an automated build process that follows their DevOps activity and is seamless and requires little to no human intervention. Well, then we have to rethink the tools and processes so that they can integrate with that DevOps process seamlessly, allow developers to move really, really, really fast, but still have all the operational controls necessary to keep us safe and secure. And again, that's a big area of innovation. You'll hear from us regarding innovation and from our customers today in that regard as well. Now, in terms of BMC, we're working hard on solving these problems, on addressing these challenges for you. And BMC has always been a heterogeneous, open player that works with all technologies, whether it's cloud environments, hardware environments, operating systems. That's been our hallmark. We've always been open, and you will see us continue to be, because as Dan said, we know that we live in an ecosystem of technology that requires us to support you working with many, many, many different choices. So whether it's an open API, RESTful API, standards-based, modern, well-documented, that allows you to integrate with another technology, or to allow you to consume something as a service in the middle of that DevOps process, we're going to continue to invest in being open. Scalable. Scalable certainly means being able to scale with the type and gravity of workloads, but it also means being able to scale across environments. Whether you're working on the mainframe, your data center, a private cloud environment, a public cloud, our technology needs to be able to scale across those environments with you as well. And that's a huge area of focus for us. And then lastly, a modular approach. You know, BMC has, we believe, the best-in-class technology on the market, but we realize that sometimes you want to use one of our solutions, sometimes you want to use 2 of them, sometimes you want to use all of them, and whatever form you want to consume, we need to be modular. We need to allow you to work with our own technology to be better together and with third-party solutions. So our commitment is to invest in those 3 principles continuously, and again, you'll see very strong examples of that today. So Dan talked about the fact that we're focused on delivering this innovation against your needs for operational, automation, and service requirements. So let's jump in now to the meat of the presentation and start to talk about where we're innovating. We're innovating first in service, and we'll talk about, and you'll get to see some demonstrations of technology in service. Now, where are we focused? Well, first, we're focused on this idea of cognitive. Again, humans can't keep up with the scale of innovation, the scale of data. There is no way that any of you are going to double, triple, quadruple the number of people on your help desk in the next 2 or 3 years. In fact, how many of us in the room like calling the help desk? Right? None of us. So in an ideal world, we'd have systems that are self-healing. We'd have the ability to work through mobile devices instead of calling the help desk and requesting services digitally. Well, we're going to talk about investments that we're making there. Because the truth is, I mean, my kids are teenagers. They don't know what a help desk is. And I'm pretty sure they'd be frustrated if I had told them they had to call one to fix a problem. Discovery anywhere. We've got to be able to understand where our assets live and breathe, what their application dependencies are, how they change over time, regardless of environment. Our most modern clients are moving workloads around all the time. Sometimes it makes sense to burst into AWS to get access to elastic capability to run a big job, and then other times it makes sense to run in their private cloud. You need to understand where those assets are, and we need to help you do that. Cloud of choice. We need not only to support your ability to operate and run and automate and service in any cloud, but you want to run our technology and consume it from any cloud. You don't want us to tell you that, well, if you want to consume our technology, you have to do it from our private cloud, or you have to do it from AWS. You want to be able to consume our technology from the environment of choice that makes the most business sense for you. And you have our commitment there as well, and we're going to talk about some powerful innovation in this area in just a moment. And then lastly, omni-channel. You know, back to that modern worker does not want to pick up the phone. That modern worker wants to sit in front of their desktop, they want to be on their mobile phone, they want to be using chat and instant message. They do not want to have to pick up the phone. And so we have to deliver digital services and the support for those digital services through the means that is most efficient and desired by our end users. Again, a huge area of innovation that you've helped us learn a lot from, and we're excited to tell you about that as well. So with that, let me invite my colleague, Nayaki Nayar, to join me on stage. Nayaki leads our digital service management organization. Nayaki? Good to see you.
Thank you, Bill. Hello, everyone. Good morning. How are you all doing? Awesome, awesome. Like Bill said, service management as a category, be it IT service management or customer service management, is going through a major transformation, especially the service desk function, the level 0 and level 1 service desk function, which in today's day and age is very manual, very time-consuming, and pretty expensive, is going to get completely disrupted in the next 2 to 3 years with automation through AI, ML, chatbots, and virtual agents. We can debate whether this automation is going to be 100%, 50-50, or 70-30. Independent of the industry you're in, this is coming very, very fast. And customers who can provide this service at the highest accuracy, highest speed, and the lowest cost is going to drive the competitive differentiation. So what are we doing? We are evolving our portfolio, the ITSM portfolio that you all are very familiar with, our Remedy Service Management Suite and Discovery, into the cloud and the multi-cloud world, starting with Discovery of not just of your on-prem assets. Now, Discovery can also discover your cloud assets in AWS, Azure, OpenStack, Cloud Foundry, and we just released Discovery of Google Cloud also. After you discover how you evolve from what we call reactive to proactive and predictive service, we have embedded deep learning capabilities inside the service management, inside Remedy as a service, so that you can actually provide what we call predictive and proactive service management. We'll do the demos also. And after you do for IT, how you extend it to lines of business. Lines of business like HR, like procurement, like facilities, how you extend it to lines of business with our business workflows as a service. And all of this, providing this experience, end-to-end experience, your employee experience, your customer experience, your consumer experience, through our digital workplace as a service, which is not just mobile and portal-based. Now we also support what we call omni-channel, channel of end users' preference. We support SMS, we support Slack. We just released support for Skype for Business, which will also do a demo. This entire stack is built on leveraging microservices. We have various microservices like cognitive service, integration service, that all of these applications are consuming. And I'm really happy to announce this entire stack we just containerized. We containerized it using Dockers and Kubernetes so that all of you can run in your choice of cloud, so that you can run either in our cloud, BMC cloud, you can run on AWS cloud, or you can run on Azure cloud. In future, we'll also support other clouds. This entire end-to-end suite is what we have branded as BMC Helix, so that now you can transform your service management from IT service management to what we now call cognitive service management. This is a full end-to-end suite offering, and the easiest and the simplest way to remember what Helix stands for. It stands for 3 C's. Cloud, where everything is delivered as a service. Remedy as a service, Discovery as a service, digital workplace as a service. Containerized. Containers are not only helping me with absolutely doing the deployments, upgrades, scalability at a very high speed, but also gives a choice for all of you to run in cloud of your choice, AWS, Azure, and BMC Cloud. With embedded cognitive capabilities, we have embedded AI, ML, chatbot, and virtual agent capabilities into every single layer for different personas, for end user as a persona, for agent as a persona, and also developer as a persona. Are you all really eager to look at the demo? Beautiful. So I have Raj here. Raj heads up our Remedy engineering, and we'll be doing 3 demos today. We'll start with a container demo. Remedy deployment that you all are probably familiar with typically takes what, 2 to 3 weeks? From this time you start the deployment to getting through all the installations, configuration, and just getting a plain vanilla system up and running. So let's switch to the demo screen. We will actually do the deployment of Remedy live here. He just kicked off, triggered the deployment using Helm charts. It's running in containers. You see every single component of Remedy, Smart IT, Smart Reporting, mid-tier, RSO server, every component that we have containerized is coming up as we speak. By the way, this is a live demo. This is not a recorded demo. This is a live demo. And we'll also, right after this, we'll show you how we can do scalability and also undeployment. Later in the afternoon, Raj will do the demo of actual upgrades. Upgrades take a little longer, but he'll also show you how you can speed up your upgrade. This is actually going through the end-to-end installation, end-to-end configuration of the apps, including the environments, setting up high availability, and also configuring the load balancer. Is it almost done? Yeah, so it's almost done. As soon as it's done, we'll be able to log in to the Smart Reporting server. Smart Reporting, as you all know, is used for building reports and dashboards. It's done, so you can see it's pretty much complete. And we should be able to log into the Smart Reporting server. This is a plain vanilla server. Nothing is set up, but it's going to log into the Smart Reporting server, and you should be able to start building your dashboards and your reports. This, that used to take literally 2 to 3 weeks before, we just did it in a minute and a half. Big round of applause. This is live, just deploying Remedy end-to-end live on the stage here. So in addition, when you have peak periods, when you have year-end or month-end close process and you need additional capacity for reporting, you want to be able to deploy additional servers or additional pods. We'll show you how we can trigger. So Raj just triggered where he can kick in additional pods for Smart Reporting. So he's just deploying that right now. You can go up and down based on your peak loads. If you have peak loads, you can increase how many pods you need. And when you don't have peak loads, you can always decrease it dynamically without taking 2 or 3 days to deploy additional servers for each one of these components. Just as easily as we were able to do deployment, we can also undeploy. Using the same Helm charts, we can completely undeploy if you have dev systems, test systems, training systems, sandbox systems that you don't need. We were not able to do this before. You can just run that Helm chart and then completely undeploy the entire stack. Later, like I said, he will show you the demo of the upgrades later in the afternoon in the breakout session. A big round of applause really to Raj and the entire engineering team, Remedy engineering team, for us to come this far in such a short period. Thank you, Raj. Moving on to the cognitive. Last year, we showed you the chatbots for various channels, Slack and SMS. This year, we released tight integration of chatbots with knowledge management, especially for call deflection of level 0 and level 1. You know, password reset is one of the most common requests that comes in level 0, especially with 60-day, 90 days requirements that every company has. Within the chatbot, you can request, hey, what are the various ways? Help me do the password reset. It returns all the various knowledge articles, including some of the rich content like videos. By the way, I just realized both Raj and Darren are doing such a great job doing the demos, so I'm going to give them a spot bonus. Bill, is that okay to give them some spot bonus? So I'm going to give them some spot bonus. And here through the chat bot, I can ask for what are the various types of giving spot bonuses, and options. It returns the various knowledge management content. The key here is I'm seamlessly switching between IT use cases and line of business use case. From the same chatbot, whether it's an IT service request or a HR service request, you can use that same chatbot. And for me to give the spot bonus, I need access to Workday, which is our backend HR fulfillment system. And right from here, I can put in the request for Workday, for access to Workday, and it also has interactive buttons so that we can put in that request as a high or a low priority without ever having to call help desk. All of this being done through this. So just like we did this end-to-end session with this web bot, we also released Skype for Business. Skype for Business, which is one of the most common channels I'm sure every one of you use in your environment for various meetings. That same channel can now be used for all of your service requests, both for IT service requests and also line or business service requests. So if you want to take some time off, right from there, you can request the time off. And this is Darren, who did this demo of the chatbots. He heads up our product management for all the chatbots and cognitive stuff. A big round of applause for Darren. So we just went through very quickly entire deployment of Remedy on containers, running in our cloud. Exact same process could be used to run in cloud of your choice, AWS or in Azure, with cognitive capabilities, with AI ML embedded into it, using bots of your preference, whether SMS bot, Slack bot, Skype bot, channels of your preference. And all of this is not possible if you don't have real customer stories. And we have Trish here from eBay joining us. Trish will share their journey, cloud journey, transformation of their service desk. Trish, welcome.
Glad to be here.
So Trish, can you share with the audience eBay's journey into cloud and the overall strategy?
Yes, I'd like to say that it's not been easy, and we're not completely there, but we started this journey, I'd really say over the past 2 years, and we're not there yet, but we really set our strategies up to where we needed to first kind of get our house in order. So we spent the first year, about 2016, focusing on our foundational aspects of it, putting our platforms in place, and really making sure that we've refreshed what we needed to do and make sure that everything was in working order. The second year, last year, in 2017, we called it the year of app rationalization. So before we decided what we were going to move, what we were going to keep, where we were going to go, we needed to really realize how much duplicity did we have throughout the organization. And so we set about looking across our hundreds of apps that we had. And a lot of that was decomming those things that were very duplicative, re-justifying things that we needed to keep, but at the same time, and I think Dan or Bill said this, that you have to keep everything running.
Absolutely.
So every day that we're making a decision on a decom, we had another business unit telling us that they've got 5 more apps that they've already downloaded and they're ready to deploy. So with that, the real story here is that we've decided over time that there is no one answer going to the cloud. There's no one perfect number that you have to say. So we put a target out there of, let's say we're going to do 80%. We should be in the next year or two, 80% in the cloud. Well, what does that mean? And we are a multi-cloud user. We have private clouds. We have public clouds. We have the multitude, hybrids, and we're trying to manage through that. So,
great. Trish, how is BMC partnership working out? How did we help you in this journey?
Fabulously, thank you very much. So BMC has been an excellent partner, and I will say that a piece of this has been, and I think it was really brought up on the page, until you can actually manage your business, you have to know what business you're in and what you have. So it's really being transparent, finding the visibility into what's out there to be able to make the right decisions. So discovery was one I feel has been the largest value-added piece. let alone the service that you're getting with that, but it's really finding out what do you even own, what do you have. A lot of our engineers and developers out there, they'll stand up all their own things. We find servers under desks. We have, I love the engineers, but I have to tell you they don't always follow my compliance standards that I put in place. So there's a lot of that. And so we'll get lists of IP addresses that are out there. We get lists of servers. We have all of this. We find it. We don't know who owns it. Yeah. So utilizing CMDB and actually everybody committing that that's going to be, source of truth for whatever, and we have to build it and have the component assignments of what's in it to be able to then build on top of it, is really where our venture went. And over time, we've been trying, but I think that we've made a lot of headway over the past year or two in actually finding out that we're very close to fully understanding what's in our environment and what's out there.
And also, I know the service desk function, the transformation you have gone through with the first contact resolution.
Yes.
Phenomenal success there.
It is. And we have actually reduced, I wish I had the statistics that you were going to ask me that question, because I don't have it. Our first call resolution for that L1 level has, and I wish I knew it, you probably even know it, it's a huge number that we have gotten. And it really is just being able to have things at our fingertips and be able to respond through using ITSM on top of CMDB.
Beautiful. So, Trish, thanks a bunch. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Great partnership.
Having Bill.
Nayaki, thank you. Trish, thanks very much for being here. Great. Well, thank you to Nayaki and Trish. Pretty exciting. Cognitive service management is a big focus area because it's going to help you achieve your goals of delivering better service and being more efficient. So let's switch now and let's talk about automation. And all of you, I'm sure, have automation agendas. In fact, one of the evidence points for this is that one of the #1 searches in LinkedIn by recruiters is IT automation. So if you're looking for a new job and you want to get calls from recruiters, just go into your LinkedIn profile and put automation somewhere up there at the top, and you'll start getting a lot of phone calls. We all know that automation is important and that it also is changing. This need to run anywhere. And what do we mean by that? Well, automation doesn't live in one place. Automation lives in the mainframe, the data center, the private cloud, the public cloud. And not only does it live in all those different places, but it needs to span across them. Because we have to automate activities where applications and data live in different places and need to work together to achieve a business outcome. Secondly, data. Data is exploding, and data analytics, big data analytics, is one of the areas where automation is being applied most aggressively, because data analytics is a key source of business value, yet we cannot throw people at problems that include the volumes of data that we want to analyze. And so we'll talk about that as well. And then lastly, application modernization. And what we mean by that is, as our dev teams move to a DevOps process, a modern high-velocity process, we can't expect automation to be something that we think of as an afterthought. We can't say, okay, great that you build that app. Now let me think about all the automation characteristics that need to be included with it. Let me think about all the different data sets and applications that need to work together with that one new application to create the service outcome you're looking for. We need to include that in the DevOps process. We need to have automation as a service that we can call and test during the DevOps process. So a ton of innovation happening in this area, and I'm very pleased to be able to invite Gur Steiff, who leads the digital business automation business for BMC. Gur, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Real brief, Bill talked about the need to run everywhere. And one of the things we really focused on for Control M 2018 is the ability to run everywhere. Not just traditionally how we thought about it on different types of servers, from the mainframe to distributed systems, to virtual systems, and to virtual images in the cloud, but going into serverless, running containers, running jobs in Lambda functions, step functions in AWS, anything and everything that you need to run, being able to manage that through Control M as one seamless business process, as the business process spans on-prem and a multi-cloud environment. In addition, we did a lot of work to enable developers to take advantage of that. So we think of automation in several ways. One is, how do we allow developers to build automation into the application and manage automation as part of the DevOps process, so that when we roll a new version of an application, we roll all the automation rules that come with that application at the same time. But the other aspect of automation is making sure that everything is compliant. Because as much as we want to give developers all the power in the world to create and innovate at a highly agile process, we also want to ensure that they do so in a compliant way that doesn't break standards, that doesn't breach security. So we built all this automation into Control-M in Control-M 2018. But the best news you'll hear all day is that not only have we done all that, we've also done that in a context of an annual release that takes about 5 minutes to upgrade with 0 downtime. So once you got to Control-M version 9, going to 2018 or 2019 or 2020 and beyond is a 5-minute process that requires effectively no downtime of the environment, allowing you to take advantage of all those innovations in a highly agile environment in your organization. In addition to Control-M 2018, we also did some major strides around managed file transfer. So just about 2 years ago, we introduced Control-M managed file transfer. And the concept behind it is that every business process typically also involves moving of data. It could be between 2 systems, between 2 applications, between on-prem and the cloud, but every business process involves moving data. And you wanted to make sure that this data movement is incorporated as an integrated part of the business process. That also provided great benefits with traceability, the ability to understand and have a dashboard for real time, what's going on with anything and everything, and being able to troubleshoot. In 2018, this year, we've added B2B capabilities with what we call MFT Enterprise. So not only can data movement be a part of any business process, but also sharing data with business partners, supply chain, up and down, customers and suppliers, moving data around with MFT, including routing rules and everything that has to do with that, built into Control-M managed file transfer. We'll provide a lot more detail about that later today at our track, so you're all welcome to join us at our track. But now it really gives me great pleasure to not just talk about the things we've done, but this is always about exchanging information, so it gives me great pleasure to introduce Darren Chinnen from Malwarebytes, Senior Director of Data and AI at Malwarebytes, that will share his story. Welcome, Darren. So, Darren, can you share a little bit about Malwarebytes and the company mission for those of us who may not be familiar?
Sure. So Malwarebytes was formed by our CEO and founder, Marcin Klozinski. He was actually a young kid playing video games, and he got infected by malware, right, as all kids do. I have a kid that did that. And he tried to find a way to remediate this, but he couldn't really figure anything out. They just kept telling him to reimage his machine. And because of that, he went in and he found a way, found some friends online that helped him build the first Malwarebytes at the ripe old age of 14. And by 18, it was so successful, he was giving away this product because he believed that everyone really deserves a right to a malware-free existence. And by 18, he had formed a company, and we've held true to those values. We still actually give people free remediation anywhere around the world, but we've expanded our product offering into a full antivirus suite and solution, both for business and consumers.
That's a great story. So can you tell us a little bit about the data and AI team? What's your philosophy? What's your mission at the team?
Sure. So, when I joined Malwarebytes, the vision was very simple: deliver amazing insights into data. And that sounds like very, very simple to accomplish, but it's underneath that statement, there's quite a bit of complexity. There's so much agility that needs to actually happen. We need to figure out an architecture that would allow us to abstract ourselves from the various changing cloud technologies, how the cloud was evolving, the multi-cloud situation, all of the big data advancements and open source, as well as AI. And so Control-M has helped us to do that, and we've really pinned all of our infrastructure into AWS, and we really are a cloud-native company.
So I heard you say before about Malwarebytes that data is your unfair advantage. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me more? Can you tell us all more about that and what role automation plays in gaining that unfair advantage?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing is, if you think about data, one thing you have to consider is the signal versus the noise. And that ratio in big data is enormous, right? To give you an idea of scale, we needed a product like Control-M to transform and orchestrate the processing of about 500 billion records on a daily basis. And not only that, but if you look at our data store, we're storing about 2.5 trillion records, which is almost 50 petabytes of data. And that is something that Control-M had to help us to orchestrate. And we've done all of that in about a period of 2 years. So some of the unfair advantages that we've been able to derive, the signal in all of that noise, are things like malware velocity charts. So you can think of, I'm dating myself, I'm actually 87, but I use Pearl Cream. But I used to get up on Sunday mornings and we'd have Casey Kasem's Top 40. For you young people, that's Spotify Top 40, okay? And he would come out and say, you know, last week at 13, but coming up the charts at number 2 is Lionel Richie's Stuck on You. And that is an accelerating velocity of Lionel Richie, right? You know, but unfortunately, losing steam is Paula Abdul, who was trending at number 2, and now she's 52nd, right? That is a declining velocity. We use that type of analysis to our advantage, and we orchestrate this through Control-M so that we can understand what malware is accelerating in velocity, which kind of signals that it's highly important for us to look at, and what malware has sort of peaked and have sort of been figured out by the average AV company and really has sort of lost some steam in its velocity. It's estimated actually that there's at times almost 1 million new malware released into the world. And what we have to do is use Control-M to orchestrate this signal to figure out what's the most important 1% for us to focus on. So those are some of the unfair advantages that we use to have a better detection engine. And really the last unfair advantage is agility. So back when I was at Apple, we thought we were going fast, and we would brag about it. It took us about 6 months to get Hadoop in, which is actually blazing fast, about 18 months to get Insights. And I can tell you that in the past 2 years at Malwarebytes, with Control-M as really the backbone, we have literally plugged and played about 4 different data platforms in a period of 24 months. So we see the advantage of being able to take advantage, the advantage of being able to leverage the latest and greatest in cloud technologies, the latest and greatest in open source technologies to our advantage. It's something that other companies and other frameworks just can't keep up with.
That's great. Sounds like a lot of those applications are natural candidates for artificial intelligence. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're thinking in that area?
Sure. So we leverage AI extensively. It's actually part of our name, right? Data and AI. A couple of the projects that we do. The first one that we do is we do something called behavioral clustering. It's actually time series behavioral clustering. And so what we do is we have these machine models set up on Control-M, and you can imagine that when we detonate a piece of malware, we're able to collect about 33,000, 35,000 behavioral attributes. We flatten those out, and we allow it to in an unsupervised manner to kind of bubble up the behavioral clusters. And then what we do is we have Control-M run that every day. And what you can see is how malware evolves over time. And I'm not an expert in security, but it reminds me of the fashion industry, where we don't just come up with a new fashion, right? What happens is your jeans get bigger and bigger and bigger, and pretty soon there's another cluster of bell bottoms, right? And that's essentially what we kind of see in malware. Those are some interesting insights. The other thing that we do is we use AI for operational efficiencies. We're able to use AI to predict whether we're going to hit a sales forecast in a quarter. We call it a survival model, and actuaries use this to model insurance policies. We're able to leverage that technology on Control-M with our machine models to understand whether we need to take action early. And then the last thing that we do with AI is we use natural language processing. And this is where we've had to leverage a multi-cloud strategy, right? Because we wanted to get a best in class. At the time, Google Cloud had the best in class in terms of natural language processing. So we were able to extend and just plug and play Google Cloud into there. It turns out that Amazon just released what they say is something better. We're not worried about it because the framework of Control-M is already there, and it'll take us about an hour to plug in AWS and see if they really can outperform. Now, all of this is actually sitting on what we call Elysian fields. So if you're into AI, what you know is that predictions actually are great, and then they sort of decline over time as the data changes. So you have to continue to train and retrain your models and make sure that the predictions are fresh and are accurate. Well, we plug all of our machine models and AI into sort of a field of Control-M. And Control-M helps us to keep those models trained and up to date with accurate predictions every day.
That is awesome. Any advice you could share on where to start, or any advice you could share with the team here in the spirit of exchanging ideas?
Well, I think the first thing is that the only constant that we've seen in the big data space and AI is change. And it's changing so fast that I think we've decided to pin really our backbone and canvas for us on AWS. And we had to pick something that was a constant, a layer of abstraction that could be sort of the backbone of what we plug technologies into. And that is workload automation. For us, that was Control-M. And the first one might make sense, right? Because you say, well, we all need a data center, we need infrastructure, but why workload automation? Shouldn't it be something else? I think that was true a little while ago. Back in the days when we had mainframes and SAP and Oracle, you'd purchase a technology thinking that I'm going to use this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Today, technology is interchangeable. And in fact, you want to be on the bleeding edge because that's where all the bug fixes are in open source technology. So what we've done is we've reversed the model, and we actually pick workload automation, Control-M, to be the backbone, and that allows us to nimbly sort of stay on the bleeding edge with all of the new developments in cloud and open source and AI.
Sounds like great innovation. Thank you so much, Darren. This is a great story. Darren and his team will be also at the track to provide more information for those of you who want to hear more. They'll be at the Control-M track later, providing some more insight and more detail. Thank you so much.
Come see us.
Awesome. Darren, thank you very much. Darren, thank you. Thanks for being here. Great job. Really interesting company. I think now, what, Darren, the founder's 28, is that right? Yeah, incredible. Yeah, old, right. Very exciting story. Well, let's move on, and now let's talk about operations. And within operations, there are a number of really important outcomes that we know all of you are focused on. First, performance. As we think about the need to have all of these different back-end environments, public cloud, private cloud, data centers, working together across a myriad of applications to deliver a business outcome for you, which often is a user experience on a mobile device or a desktop. Well, if the performance of that application isn't what you expect, then you have a challenge. And so the need to be able to understand the performance characteristics and the scalability requirements of all those back-end applications to create that big, best-in-class mobile experience is really, really challenging. So a big focus area for us. Secondly, security and compliance, and that's been talked about quite a bit today. And security and compliance has always been important to all of you, and it's always been a hallmark of how we partnered with and delivered value for you in the data center and in the private cloud. But one of the areas of utmost concern for our customers is security and compliance management in the public cloud. And we'll talk about that today, and we'll talk about innovations in that area. And then lastly, cost and capacity. Capacity management and capacity optimization and cost optimization is something that we've worked on with you for a long time in the data center and the private cloud. But now, as all of you think about migrating applications to the public cloud, building new applications in the public cloud, the question of what will it cost and being able to predict accurately what it will cost, and therefore to make good decisions. So you don't make a decision to go to the public cloud with a migrated application and then find out it costs 3 times as much. Oops, I made a mistake. I'm going to miss my budget. Maybe I should bring it back. None of us want those outcomes. So being able to help you get success in that opportunity to migrate to the public cloud is a big new area of innovation for us. And with that, I'd like to invite David Kramer, who's responsible for our digital service operations team. David?
Thank you. Hey, everybody. My name is David. Excited to be here. I'm going to do 2 demos today, pretty quick and focused, and we're going to pivot the discussion, as Bill just said, to cloud and talk about what's happening in the cloud. Because in my group, a lot of what we've been talking to each other and our customers about is how does IT operations change and morph when you move from the data center to this new multi-cloud world. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, well, sorry, I got to get my slide up, is cloud security. This is at the top of the list. For the last 4 or 5 years, it's been either the reason that people don't want to move to the cloud, they're worried about security, or it's the first thing that they want to solve for before they take that step to the cloud. So we stepped back 2 years ago and said, wow, we're helping a lot of really important large customers, financial services, insurance, banks, with the security and the compliance of their data center assets. How can we pivot that? How can we do something that would offer a similar outcome for cloud, but not take the technology that we built for data center environments and try and lift and shift it? So with that, let's switch over and I'll do a quick demo of our cloud security solution. Great. So you can see here the dashboard. And what we're starting with is a view of your existing cloud environments and their current state for security. So we support Azure, we support Amazon AWS, and we're proud to announce that we've just rolled out support for Google. So today, our quick little use case for cloud security is we've had a DevOps engineer who went in and set up an environment, and we're going to run a security assessment against that environment to make sure that the person set things up the right way, followed, Trish said it earlier, sometimes my developers don't follow all my compliance and governance rules. And if you've been paying attention in the popular press, you've seen hundreds over the last couple of years of situations where a customer was breached, and when they figured out what happened and why they got breached, the answer was, well, someone set up a cloud environment, misconfigured something, or just didn't know they needed to change a setting, and lo and behold, our customer data got out into the public, or our financial information got out into the public. So we built TrueSight Cloud Security. It's been in market for about a year. This is a service that runs in the Amazon cloud. Pretty simple to get up and running, about 5 minutes. You basically hook it up to your Amazon accounts or your Google accounts or your Azure accounts, aim it at those accounts, and run with the pre-built policy checks, run policy assessments. So you can see here, we've got a number of assets that we scanned and a number of violations. And you'll notice that in the middle box there, we scanned 30 different cloud resources. We actually found 49 violations, so we've got some of those systems that have multiple violations. If you'll click in and show us some of those details, you can see here that in this case we're looking at a Google environment, and it's hard to read, but there's 2 things around Google storage. First, Google logging is not set up, so you don't have the logs being sent so you can review those. And second, more importantly, your Google storage service is set up so that it's publicly accessible. And this is a very common use case. Just go search S3 buckets on Google, and you'll see a list of about 100 companies who misconfigured their S3 storage buckets on Amazon and got hacked as a result. So a very quick demo, I know, but the intent here is to show you that you can identify problems with the way your cloud environments are set up. Those may be configuration settings. Those may be specific services that are being used that shouldn't be. Those could actually be PaaS services that are being used, not just the infrastructure service, but the PaaS services. And then we don't stop with just notification. Notification's important. You need to be aware of the challenges, aware of the mistakes. But we also give you the ability to do auto remediation. So you can see here, he's going to click on remediate the violation. We've fixed a couple of these, but through an API call to, in this case, Google, we're able to reconfigure those storage buckets so that they're no longer publicly accessible. So this is a great example of automation, being able to find an issue and automatically fix it. And it's a great example of taking something that we were all focused on in the data center, config and compliance, and reimagining it so that it works in the cloud. Last comment I'll make on this one, we designed this service from the ground up with an API-first approach. Most of our customers came to us and told us, hey, if I'm operating in cloud environments, I don't really want to see your UI. I don't want to click around in your screen. I just want your data or your actions available programmatically. So all of this is designed to be plugged into a DevOps pipeline or accessed via API. Okay, let's switch back over. That was my first demo, TrueSight Cloud Security. My next one is, the second part of the discussion is around cost. And I'm sure, I won't ask for a show of hands, but I'm sure that a bunch of people in this room have had the surprise cloud bill. We were at our customer advisory board a couple weeks ago, and one of our customers got into detail. And I don't know, how many people in here, I will ask for a show of hands, how many people have actually looked at a cloud bill, like an Azure AWS bill? So I had not done this until about a year ago, and this is a true story. I got a call from my controller, and apparently my boss, Bill, was mad. And Bill was mad because I had an unplanned $250,000 cloud expense. Exactly, except I said something different. I think I called Bill and said sorry first, but no, so I went to my development team and of course, had that conversation. What is this? My developer said, gosh, I don't know. I said, ooh, that's not a good sign. Now, I'd hoped for something like, oh, we had a special project and we knew it was gonna be expensive. We didn't know. So we got hit with the cloud surprise. So let's talk about cloud cost control and how we can help. That's one of the 4 things that I'll talk about. You can see a screenshot here and some interesting bullet points, but I think it's more fun to talk about a product. So let's flip over, let's do the cloud cost control demo, and we'll hit 4 quick items here. The first is visibility. So as you can see, right at the beginning, you get a summary of the cost for all of your vendors, Google, Azure, AWS, even your on-premise environments. And just like with the policy service, we've also just rolled out Google support for the cloud cost control service. So we've got Azure, Google, and Amazon support for all 3. So the summary is great because you can click in. And I was talking to a customer and he had an Azure bill, and he said he was very surprised that his bill was so expensive, and when he asked for the details, he got a spreadsheet that was 100 pages, and it was all the minor services that his entire team had used over the month. So he had a 100-page bill from Azure, had no ability to make sense of it. Given this product, he's able to connect via APIs to his cloud accounts, whether that's Amazon or Google, bring that data in and then quickly analyze it. Where am I spending money? How much am I spending on Azure versus Google? And of course, you can double click and get into detail. Let's talk about the second use case, because cost visibility is the start, right? And that's exactly what I did. When Bill called me and was upset about my spending, I said, I need to understand what happened and why. And now the short story on that is we did a marketing campaign. Guess what? The marketing campaign was successful. We offered an iWatch if you downloaded and did something. We didn't budget very well. So when the marketing campaign got successful, we didn't plan on having an environment in Amazon that was able to serve 8,000 customers. So that's why we had this spike. But that's a very common use case, right? A developer spins up an environment and doesn't know what he put in it and then gets a $10,000 bill. So here's the second use case. You can look by business service, very important. This was something that Dan and Bill talked about. Given context of business service, then you can plan a migration. Because as everybody knows, it's cheaper to run things in the cloud, right? Maybe not, but you can prove this out. So you can take an application that you've modeled, and then you can plan for that application to be migrated. You can simulate it and figure out, hey, will it be more expensive or less expensive to run it in my data center or in the cloud? And we don't stop there. Let's get into some of the details here. This is a really important one, because when you talk to people who aren't technical, they'll say, yeah, the cloud sounds great. Let's do the cloud. It'll be cheaper. But when you talk to a technical guy, he's going to look at this and he's going to say, well, yeah, of course it's less expensive on the left. Look, you got 2 gig of memory and you got 2 CPUs. Over here, you got less than a gig of memory and you got 1 CPU. Interesting data point, we show you the performance change. So not only are we modeling the actual cost of taking the app from Amazon to Azure or from your data center to Azure or Google, we're also showing you the impact of the performance. Because in most cases, that's the balance. I want to spend more money and have this thing perform really well. Oh, wait, I can't spend that much money. How about that? There's a balancing act here. So we help you with that. Third use case, and this is another really important one because it ties together the act of interpreting data, and it brings automation to the fold. So one of the things that we learned after I found out that I was spending too much money, I didn't stop with just my little project. I told my guys, hey, I don't want this to happen again. Bill's gonna be mad again. It's gonna be your butt, not mine. So we went in and said, how many of these environments do we set up that are only used at night? Because some of our developers live in India. What about environments that are only used during the day? Those developers who live in North America. Could we do things? Could we turn some of those environments off? Do we have idle VMs that we want to terminate? Have we over allocated? Do we have VMs that are not efficient? Where can we optimize? So cloud cost control isn't just about visibility, isn't just about giving you an ability to simulate what it would look like in the cloud and how it would perform in the cloud. It's also helping you optimize your current spend. How can I, on a scheduled basis, shut those virtual machines down? And then at 8 in the morning in India, when the team's in the office, we'll spin them all back up and they can get to work. So a great story there about saving money. And then our last of the 4 things we wanted to talk about on this demo is budgeting. Again, I had a challenge. I wasn't very good at this. I'm now really good at it. But one of the things that we built in is not just a dashboard to show you your current spend, but you can see in the middle, we're using our algorithms, our analytics to project how much you're gonna spend in that environment so that you can get out in front of and maybe call your boss and tell them, hey, I'm running a little bit hot in Amazon this month. You're gonna see a surprise bill. So with that, I've given you a quick overview of 2 areas of innovation for my business unit, cloud security and cloud cost control. I'd like to thank Rick Bosworth. Rick is the backstage man over there, the side stage man, who's helping me do the demos. And with that, turn it back over to you, Bill.
Great, David, thank you. And Rick, thank you very much. Great job. Live, brand new technology running in AWS demonstrated for you today. Really exciting. All right, let's now talk about kind of bringing it all back together. So what we've seen today is BMC's set of modular solutions working together that support any cloud environment, can help you drive automation in any cloud, operate and run in any cloud, and do so in a way that's loosely coupled and integrated together when you need it to be. And then finally, DevOps ready. We talked a lot today about APIs, consuming things as a service, so that we can take the power of this innovation and build it into that agile, fast-paced DevOps process to gain the controls that we need around change, around access, around cost, around security, around compliance, without getting in the way of our objective to move fast. So we're really excited to have been able to show you this innovation today and appreciate your time. Now, before I conclude, I want to talk about one more thing. Dan talked about partners, and Dan talked about all of our partners and how important they are. But he also talked about cloud partners and the fact that cloud partners are where a lot of the change is happening. Well, that's true. And BMC is spending an extra amount of effort, particularly with our R&D activities, to make sure that we are well positioned to help you automate, service, operate, and run in any cloud. And I think we all know, we've heard the name a lot today, that AWS is a major player. And really the numbers are astounding. AWS now is a greater than $20 billion revenue business, growing at 40% a year with 40% market share. How many people in the room use AWS in some way, shape, or form? Yeah, more than half, 60, 70%. So they are the leader. And because of that, we spend a particular amount of time with AWS, but of course all the other cloud providers as well. And with that, I'm pleased to bring on stage with me Jeff Nyheim, U.S. Central Director of AWS.
Thank you, Bill.
Jeff, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And by the way, Jeff is a Chicago native, lives right here in town.
I am. And those hands that were raised earlier, thank you all for being AWS customers. Delighted about that.
So Jeff, why don't you just introduce yourself real quick? Tell us a little
so
bit
I have the honor of leading the AWS team across the central U.S. Louisiana, Texas in the south, the Dakotas and Ohio in the north. That geography includes 22 of the Fortune 50. It includes approximately 1,500 enterprises. It's thanks to our clients. It's a business that's growing very quickly. And we are doing our very best to be responsive to your business outcomes and all the things we've been talking about this morning. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you again.
Oh, great. Well, we appreciate you being here too, Jeff. And You know, it's interesting because we're spending a lot of time together, and we're spending time together with leadership like Jeff, but also with the AWS product teams. And the reason is that together, we want to make sure that you are successful in your journey to the public cloud. And much of the innovation that we showed today is a testament to that. But AWS has actually organized themselves to work with partners like BMC to make sure that our technology is finely tuned to support your challenges. So for instance, you heard David talk quite a bit about cloud migration. Well, what are some of the big challenges that AWS customers face? Well, they face the challenge of, when I want to move something, what has to move? What are all the assets and applications and the connective tissue between them that support that? Well, Discovery from BMC has been certified as a best-in-class competent solution for AWS. And then, of course, you just saw David talk about cost. We want customers to have a successful journey to AWS with no cost surprises. Yeah. Jeff, any other thoughts on that?
Well, let me maybe just give you the kind of a week in the life, because as I'm sitting watching this morning, as all of you are, I'm thinking just in the last week, I've had clients that have asked to give some representative samples. We've made a decision that we will move all of our SAP environment to AWS within the next 2 years. Another example, we will close one of our 2 data centers and expect to save $70 million annually by virtue of that decision. Third scenario, customer says, we want to move 90% of our data to the AWS cloud within the next 18 months. Those are representative, and it indicates that we've moved beyond the what is the cloud and why the cloud to how quickly can we move, how do we mitigate risk through the process, and how can we drive so in a planful, predictable way with driving to our business outcomes. And it all really starts with business outcomes. At AWS, we have our 14 leadership principles. The first is customer obsession. Our teams spend the majority of our time not on technology, not on the bits and bytes and services, as proud as we are of them. We spend the majority of our time understanding your business. So what are the top line strategies? What are you driving towards in terms of your key initiatives? And ultimately the outcomes, the ways in which you measure the business. And that's how we can connect the instrumentation that BMC provides to us and to you as a valued partner with the need to create a case for change. And that's part of that case for change is strategy, and a lot of that needs to be underpinned by sound financial and a data-driven approach.
Yep, exactly. And you know, Jeff talked about it, but everything's about speed, and AWS wants their customers to be successful migrating to the cloud and not stubbing their toe because things didn't go perfectly. An asset wasn't understood well enough in terms of its requirements. Cost was predicted inaccurately. And together we're working with customers like Change Healthcare, Dow Jones, some of the largest enterprises in the world that have a migration strategy to AWS. Another part of speed is DevOps. And when we think about DevOps, AWS has a competency around DevOps because they don't want customers to stumble when their developers have used a DevOps process to create a brand new application. They think it's ready for prime time, and then IT operations says, no, it's not. You haven't instrumented it for performance. You haven't instrumented it for compliance and security, as David demonstrated a moment ago. You haven't instrumented it for change management, automation, et cetera. And so that's another area where we've partnered very closely with AWS to certify our technology to be able to be invoked in a DevOps process that's leveraging the AWS platform. So at the moment that the development team is ready to go into production, all of the instrumentation is there to make sure we're safe, cost-effective, and performant.
Yeah, the complexity is in that the interdependencies. It's about data and apps and servers and the other networking infrastructure. It's having to think more broadly, taking it up a level beyond the technology to what is our governance. Several references to governance this morning, which I was really pleased about. And in my experience, really ends up being far more important than the technology. It's about capability of people and orgs, and it's the governance model associated with the transformation, the transition to cloud or the digital transformation of the organization. But DevOps is all about speed, as you suggested. And there isn't a choice. It's not like we get to decide to be perfect and wait for the perfect moment in the future when DevOps complexity will all be worked out. I've been in this industry this is year 35, which means I think this is the 5th technology kind of platform shift. And what's true for me, and I suspect it's true for you, is that they keep moving faster and faster and faster. And so we don't have an option of waiting. We have an option of ensuring that we're taking care of the things that are most important, and that we're delivering, all of us together, delivering with increasing speed, new solutions to markets, new solutions to our customers, to our supply chain partners, to internal constituents, the business units, which are, as was discussed before, are more involved in IT decisions than ever before and far more demanding. And they may not know as much as they think, but they know an awful lot more than they used to. And so back to the extent to which we can apply the BMC tool set to rationalize those interdependencies and really take full advantage of what DevOps means in terms of both technology, culture, and governance is critically important.
Absolutely. And that leads us to our last point, which is once we've migrated legacy applications to AWS and we've built new ones and we've delivered them at a fast pace and they run the way we expect and are governed properly, well, then we need to operate. And Andy Jassy, who's Jeff's boss, that is the CEO for AWS, he always says, well, there is no other cloud, and everybody's going to be in AWS someday, and that's the only infrastructure they'll have. Well,
and what's wrong with that?
Well, I applaud that, and with the goal of going from 20 billion to 50 billion to 100 billion, that'll happen, I'm sure, at some point. But we all operate in a world today that's really hybrid. And so the last aspect is AWS recognizes that and realizes that you have to operate in an environment where I have some applications in AWS, some that are on-prem, some that are a third-party service. And again, I have to be able to, across all those environments, govern, manage change, ensure performance, cost, et cetera. And so this is another area where we've partnered to make sure that our solutions simply transform across those different environments to give you the business outcomes that you want.
I mentioned the 22 of the Fortune 50 and 1,500 enterprises, and the customer set for us. It's oil and gas, it's auto, it's consumer packaged goods, it's some of the largest retailers on planet Earth, heavy financial services, in particular life insurance here in the central Midwest. I mean, these are companies that have been doing business in some instances, including one of our favorite ag tech companies in the world, 184 years. So what's their infrastructure? It's everything. By definition, and so yes, we will acknowledge that we live in a heterogeneous world. We live in a hybrid world, and that by definition is the case for all but the native, cloud native companies. And so that operations component is so critically important, and it's back to the interdependencies, the complexity, squeezing out the risk, and it starts with being able to articulate, well, what's there, and how do we manage it? The example of the customer who was surprised by the bill, I wish I could say I've never had that conversation, but I had actually that conversation also just in the last week, and it's an interesting dynamic in this case. I won't mention the customer, but we had the procurement team and central IT that said, "Oh my gosh, we're outspending our expectations for AWS this year." And we're doing so at a clip that looks like about 50 or 60% on what's a number that's tens of millions. So we're talking about real money here. Well, the business unit I got two business units in particular that are the primary consumers of that AWS spend, and they weren't surprised at all. And so there's a situation where the first thing we had to establish between AWS, because it was purchasing and central IT that called us and said, "Hey, what's up?" And the first thing we had to establish is one version of the truth. And so now back to the instrumentation we just saw here. I mean, that's exactly what the customer needs, and what in this case the customer doesn't have. So we'll have that conversation after we finish here.
That's a great story.
We're all sort of chasing each other around the last couple days. Who's supposed to know? And it turns out that we're lacking the basic instrumentation to answer a really simple question that all of you either have today or will have in the future.
That's a great story, and it reminds me of another one, which is I sat with a CIO 2 years ago. Now, this is 2 years ago, so it's before AWS was a household name. And he told me this embarrassing story, which was that he had a bunch of Amazon bills being applied to the IT budget. Yeah. And procurement came to him and said, well, why are you buying so many books? And he said, well, I don't know. I better go find out. Well, it wasn't books at all. It was AWS. Yeah. I want to refer back to one more point that Dan made, which is that it's not just about technology. So we have worked together to certify best practices of our technologies working together to achieve your business outcomes. But between Jeff's organization and Dan's and my organization, we also have teams of people in pre-sales and services that are ready to partner with you to understand how we can help you in the transformation of using our technologies together and assure your success. And really, I want to thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Welcome.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the last hour together. We had a lot of fun. You saw several demonstrations of technology, multiple customers, a partner, and many of our leaders. And again, I very much appreciate your time. Our goal in working together with you is to help you master IT, conquer the cloud. And when we say rule the world, what we really mean is everybody's going through digital transformation. We want you to be the disruptors, not the disrupted. And we want to be your partner in that transformation. Thank you very much for your time today. We're going to take a 15-minute break now, and we'll come back to this room in 15. Thank you.